Hi, my name is Brendan McLaughlin, and this is my reflective role for week 3 of my film and TV course. Trying something a bit different this week. I'm reading this from a pre-scripted script that I've attached to my camera. See if it sounds better. I'll show some images of what I've done. This was documentary week, much like the previous week. That was music video week. It was the same structure, but with documentary week, unlike last week, I was really confident with this week. I thought overall that I went really well with me being able to do the project done effectively on time with a lot of detail in it. I did have some issues and some problem solving, but overall, now that I've found the groove with the project, I'm really enjoying it, and I think I'm getting into the groove for it. So we're just going to go into Wednesday, my first day. Okay, so the first day was Wednesday. Unlike last week, where we used Wednesday as more of a catch-up kind of time, and work went straight into the theory and technical side of documentaries, because you kind of have to understand that theory and technical side to create a documentary. This is the exact same kind of structure as last week. So the first thing we done was start researching the different types of documentaries. We mostly just we kind of looked at all of them, and then we started going into three. Really analysing 3 of them. So the 3 I chose was, the first was past history. This is where there's an interview talking directly with the subject, and they play more of a role in the story. Think Louis Theroux, he plays a role with his people, and he builds kind of a relationship with them that makes it kind of more unique and kind of more powerful, and it's taught me to use more kind of personal connections with people other than, documentaries that focus more on like animals and things like that. Then there was the second one, expository. This is similar to the last one, but the bigger difference is it takes more of a third-person view, using a voiceover, not communicating with the subject. For example, March of the Penguins, that is expository, because there is a narrator kind of narrating the story of the penguins, and they've kind of taken footage and blended it into the story, whereas the previous one, it's Louis Theroux kind of directly interviewing them. And finally, there was poetic. This is the most unique one because it's based entirely on visuals, creating the documentary type, as it's so creating the documentary type, making it so different from the other ones because it's very much more visually based, and it's kind of more about our feelings and stuff like that. And that was a pretty interesting one for me. I thought that was effective, this being able to effectively analyse all 3 of the different types, mostly because I kind of done a lot of research into them. I really understood, by the end of it, I really understood these types. I think it really helped me when I was building my project, my documentary in the future that I'll get to on Friday, because I really understood how a documentary kind of worked and what I wanted to do for the documentary. Next up was the same things before, a director case study. I decided to do Michael Moore, who's directed over massively more controversial movies where he looks at guns, for example. I actually watched a documentary he done, and it's really interesting, his kind of more brutal style with it. And I think this went, again, really well. I think I was really able to analyse him and stuff like that, and really work out kind of what his style is and what I can pull from it. One of the biggest improvements I made from last week, because you might remember from last week I said sources were my biggest problem, but Michael Moore actually done a lot of interviews talking about documentaries, and his style and why he makes documentaries. So I was able to directly pull quotes from him. That I think makes it a better kind of more well done kind of thing. Overall, I thought this was a really good start to the week. I think both the 2 kind of projects I'd done were really well done, and they were kind of really they're really well thought out and stuff like that. I didn't really have any issues. I think sourcing is always going to be an issue. I found it a bit difficult to kind of find quotes at points and stuff like that, but I think I am getting much better with sourcing, so I kind of got very lucky with Michael Moore, because he does a lot of interviews. But in the future, I think I'm going to have to get big better at sourcing and stuff like that. So next up, we're going to go on to Thursday. That was when I'd done a 60-second documentary. Today was the Thursday. This was a practical activity of the week. This being a 60-second documentary. I decided to do mine on D.B. Cooper, who's a really interesting American mystery and stuff like that, and it's really interesting. The night before, I wrote like a 60-second kind of like you know, 6-second documentary on him. So the reason why we done this was so we could test out 3 different type of microphones. The first being the kind of standard wired microphone. This is basically how it works. Is it's wired onto you, and there's a receiver, and then on the camera there is another receiver that picks up the audio. The second was the boom pole microphone. This is what you see commonly in like interviews and stuff like that. That's the big boom pole that kind of comes down right off camera and records the audio. And the third was just a standard microphone. They all have their kind of benefits and advantages and stuff like that, and I kind of went into that in the video in my work. But basically, boom pole's better for group ones, wired's better for long interviews, and the interview mic's good for like, you know, on the street interviews. The second thing we done was look at lighting setups. We actually looked at 2 lighting setups. The first we looked at was 3-point lighting, and this is where you basically use 3 different lights. Like I use 1 light, but you use 3 lights to kind of create a perfect kind of interview space. And this was challenging. I'll go into this in the problem solving section, but this was kind of challenging. And the other one we done that was also challenging was natural lighting. So this is where you basically use natural light. I would use it, but it's like night right now. We use natural light, and you kind of mess around the settings on the camera to kind of really use that natural light well. So we're going to go into a new segment I'm going to be calling Brendan's Problem Solving Corner. It's Brendan's Problem Solving Corner. Okay, the first problem I had was to do with equipment. We were using pretty unique equipment for this because we are using kind of very big lights, kind of do the 3-point lighting setup, and there was some problems with this. The biggest problem was the attachments that we were meant to use, because the lights came separate to the stand. The attachment that was on attachment actually didn't work, and because it's a big group activity, because we were in a kind of big class, there was a limited amount of equipment, we couldn't actually use it. So basically what we had to do was, because we work in groups, because of the limited equipment, I had to get someone to hold the light at the kind of angle I wanted. That did make the 3-point light setup kind of difficult to do, but it, you know, it didn't totally ruin it. But it's something, you know, I've learned. It teaches me that sometimes you have to problem solve on the fly. So, you know, if you have problems like that, you can't always just reshoot. You can't always do it another day and stuff like that. And so I problem solved on the fly and basically had someone hold the camera. Okay, so problem 2. This was to do with the mics. This is the first time I was using 2 of the 3 mics. I previously have used a wired microphone before, and I know of the other microphones, but they were kind of difficult to do. So the interview mic was pretty easy, to be honest. It's kind of just you plugged it in and you just interview people. That was the simplest mic. I had no issues with that. The second mic was the wired one, and this is where the problems kind of started, because it was kind of hard to set up that receiver and stuff like that. It took me a lot longer than I thought to set up that receiver and stuff like that and really understand how they work. But now I know how it works, I think I can properly set this up and stuff like that. That's useful to know because I help out in Serious. They needed wired microphones there, something that you always want to be using. So it's a shame that I wasn't able to do it as quickly, but now I know what I'm doing, I can do it much more quickly. And then the third mic that was again a bit challenging was the boom pole microphone. So this was the big pole kind of thing that, you know, you hold and it does it. This was kind of difficult. Firstly, it took a while to really understand how to set it up with the camera and, you know, right ports and stuff like that, and also like how to handle it and how to get the best audio. It did take me a couple of tries, and that kind of came a bit annoying. Oh, sorry, my thing's falling off. So that came kind of a bit annoying. But overall, I think this went pretty well. I was able to problem solve all these kind of situations, all these microphone situations, really well, and there wasn't really any problems. So I'm going to go into problem 3 now. Okay, this is problem 3. This is more of a smaller issue, but basically what I wanted to set up the interview was against a white wall in a classroom, because that's one of the only places free to kind of film quietly. Here's the problem was, because the lights we were using didn't have any batteries, they were plugged in. We had to use ports, ports, and we didn't have any extension cables or anything like that. So basically I had to change what I wanted to shoot. to someone that aesthetically didn't look as good, but practically worked, because then I could plug in the ports in and do the 3-point light setup. I think this teaches me that sometimes you have to go for the practical option over the aesthetic option. Obviously, if you can, try and get both, but sometimes you kind of have to compromise, and that's what I basically learned from this problem, and how I problem solved it was obviously just moving the thing. Finally, the final issue is, and this only actually happens when you're working in a group with a tight deadline, people always want to get a bit annoyed about each other, especially as it was such a tight deadline. I was working in a group of 3 other people, because there's not that many people. There's a lot of people in my class, and equipment's kind of sparse, so we kind of work together. And things did, I admit, flare up a bit, and kind of got a bit wrong. But the way I problem solved around this was by taking a break, and I kind of scheduled it out more. So we made sure that, hey, you know, do we need, you know, this person do this person, you know, like we need a certain amount of time to get everyone done. And in the end, we did go over a bit, I think about an hour, but we were able to get that done, and most of that hour was because of how long light setup was. So that was the first part of the day. Okay, so next up was the afternoon. This is when we started kind of more planning for the next day. That would be our filming / editing day for the documentary. This was very easy planning. The reason for this being that the documentary, and especially my documentary, is very limited amount of planning, as you're looking more for raw kind of genuine reactions, instead of like having a scripted mockumentary style one. Therefore, I just planned out a basic intro and outro to give some structure to the documentary, and roughly how I was going to interviewing the people. This allowed people to not be boxed in by a script and speak more naturally. That creates more of an interesting documentary. The reactions are raw, and stuff like that. Overall, I thought this day was testing, especially the problems that come with working in a group in a high pressure situation. But I personally felt I'd done really well with being able to manage it, especially near the end, with me being able to create an experiment video that did properly experiment with the 2 light setups and the 3 mics. Plus, I was able to lay a solid groundwork for filming for the next day with my documentary, with the kind of shot list I'd done. That was basically just a list of all the shots that I'm having for intro and outro, and a risk assessment and things like that. And I think I really did lay a strong, solid foundation for Friday, and that's why I personally think Friday went so well. So next we'll go into Friday. Okay, so Friday was the big shoot and edit day. The morning was dedicated to filming the setting up, what I was calling an interview box. The idea was basically that I would set up 2 lights, a table and a chair, and I could just, you know, and have tripods set up, and I could just pull people from my class who are free, teach stuff like that, and just have them talk about, you know, a couple minutes, then they can go. This made it a lot easier than just, you know, going, setting up everyone, just having a person sit down, setting them up, then going, because then I can just pull people quickly. And I got about, I think, 5 interviews I ended up getting. That's pretty impressive. I thought I was going to get a lot smaller. So that went well. I did have a small problem. So basically, the receiver, I was using a wired microphone setup because I thought I would get better audio. What basically happened was I had a massive issue with the wired microphone, that I lost about, I think, about 20 minutes of footage, mostly because I didn't realise what the wired setup was going to a different receiver. So someone else was hearing my audio and it was recording onto their thing, not mine, and it kind of got all messy. So I basically decided what I used to swap that out, and because there wasn't any wired microphones free, I did use what I use at the moment. That's a Rode shotgun microphone. I think the audio is pretty decent for it, but a wired microphone would have been given a bit more cleaner audio. So that's something I need to keep in the mind in the future if I'm doing like wired documentary kind of interview setups. Secondly, it did take me a bit longer than I expected to set up what I call the interview box, mostly because I didn't realise how much tinkering I had to do with the lights. So the light I currently use for this documentary setup is just a standard kind of light. You can't mess around with settings or anything like that. It's just like, a big bright light. That's useful because it's a green screen. But for the interviews, I really wanted to kind of get a natural kind of a good lighting setup. So it did take me a lot of time to fiddle around with it and stuff like that. But in the long term, it did really create a lot of issue because I was able to get all my interviews filmed in the morning. So then in the afternoon, I'd done the editing and kind of helped people out their documentary because, people help me, I help them. The editing, for the most part, I think went pretty well. I think I was able to create a really snappy kind of edit. What I really liked was the beginning. I'd done like this kind of quick sizzle reel, conspiracy theories, because it was the theme of the piece. I think that really set a tone really well. I think I was able to cut between the interviewers pretty well, and I was able to mess with the sound. I did have one small issue because I was in a bit of a rush because it's Friday and college closes early. I exported it and I put it onto an SSD just to upload when I get home because it takes a while to upload. But when I was re-watching it, I basically found that I forgot to kind of cut out little bits where I just kind of skimmed over it. So I had to re-edit on my computer. Thankfully, Premiere is now working on my college home computer, so I can edit at home. But this kind of added time and stuff like that. So really, I think it taught me a lesson that next time I just need to watch through the whole video to make sure to kind of point out these little errors that take it from a great, documentary to something amateurish. So that was Friday. I think overall, this went pretty well. I think it went much better than last week where I was ill and a lot of problems because I was able to get, morning shoot, afternoon edit. That's always my preference. I was able to get pretty good interviews, and I think I was really able to nail that kind of documentary style, especially with the interviews and stuff like that, and I thought it was really interesting. So overall, I think Friday went really well, and so I go to my normal wrap-up, target, and all that. Overall, I think it's a really positive week. I was able to get everything done on time and precise, with me now effectively understanding the genre of documentary that really I think really helps me in the future because documentary, the genre itself I might not do again, but how I learned about lighting and sound that previously I have talked about being my weakest point. Now I kind of understand it better. I can transfer those skills onto the future films. I did have some slip ups, especially as it was my first time using more professional grade lights and using these more professional microphones. That was challenging, but overall, personally, if I'm talking overall as a spectrum, I think I've done really well. Okay, as usual, I'll do my review. My plus, my minus is target reflection. You know the gist. So I would say personally, on the plus side, I felt I massively improved from last week as I could put a good chunk of direct quotes into my work. I'm talking about the case studies into my work that both informative and interesting. And I thought this massively helped boost my director case study. That last week, I'll admit, felt a bit weak, but I think with these kind of more direct quotes and less fat in it, it really got to the point of working out Michael Moore's style and stuff like that. So I think that was my biggest advantage of the week. On the other side, I would say my biggest disadvantage of the week is that I didn't take my time with important parts of the project. This can be seen in twice in the project as first one being that I didn't really take my time with the kind of microphones and really understanding them on the Thursday activity, and this meant that I had some issues, and then this transferred over to Friday when I had to re-record about 20 minutes of interviews that wasted a lot of people's time and stuff like that. So I think next time I need to take my time, especially also I did have the problem with my editing where I had to go over it again and make sure. So I think next week, that I think is Surrealism Week, I'm gonna make sure that I look over the footage and I make sure I've detected any problems and really take my time with it, because sometimes I do feel like I'm under a bit of a tight deadline and it kind of stresses me out. But I need to understand that I got plenty of time and I can get this done. Okay, on review of last week's target of the what was it? Sorry, adding more quotes into my director case study. On review of what I wrote and more research into Tim Burton, especially the music videos, I did find that it was difficult to find quotes that really reinforced it and stuff like that. And I felt that the kind of quotes I was finding weren't reinforcing the points, of just there to have quotes. So I decided not to do this quote thing, because I thought it was kind of weak and stuff like that. But I did take the lessons I learned and transfer it into my director case study this week and my future director case studies to make sure that I do more research and kind of pick directors that are more connected with that genre, because Tim Burton is a good director, but he's not as connected as to genre like someone like Michael Moore, so it's easier to find quotes from him. Okay, it's target time. I'm just going to say that I'm going to slightly change how my targets work, as I want to take more of a move forward approach with these targets. Therefore, I'm going to set my target that will help me next week, as well as sort out problems this week. And I've decided that I'll make a much more detailed schedule for each day of next week with a surveillance video to make sure that the footage I shot is useful and clean. That means checks during filming to make sure I'm on time and stuff like that. And make sure I go through footage and get out of the habit of forgetting important stage of filmmaking. Overall, this was an interesting, fun week. I think I really learned a lesson and I really massively improved from the previous week. And I'm really looking forward to where I can go from here now with Surrealism Week. That I think it's going to be a really interesting week. So I will come back to you on Surrealism Week.